Hey, have you ever just stopped and thought about how much noise surrounds you every single day? Like actual noise, but also just the mental clutter, the notifications, the traffic, the endless to do list? Yeah. Today we're talking about what happens when you trade all of that for open land and quiet mornings. Welcome to the Land Buyer's Guide. I'm Scott Thomas, owner of landparker.com, where we help everyday people get onto rural land without breaking the bank. And today's conversation is one I genuinely enjoy having because it goes beyond just buying property. It's really about what life looks like on the other side of that decision. So let's get into it. There's this thing that happens when people move out to rural land, and I hear it all the time from folks who've made the jump. They say life just slows down, but not in a frustrating way, in a way that feels like they finally caught their breath. It's intentional, it's quieter, and honestly, it changes how you spend your time without you even really trying. Here's the thing. Your environment shapes your habits more than most people realize. When you're in a city or a suburb, convenience is everywhere. Coffee shop on the corner, grocery store 5 minutes away, gym down the street. That stuff is great, sure. But it also means you're kind of on autopilot a lot of the time. You don't have to plan much because everything is right there. Rural life flips that. And at first, some people think that sounds like a downside, but give it a little time, and most folks start to see it differently. When you can't just run out for something at 10 o'clock at night, you start thinking ahead. You cook more at home. You figure out how to fix things instead of just replacing them. You get creative with what you've got. And those habits, they actually build real confidence over time. That's not an exaggeration. There's something genuinely satisfying about solving problems with your own hands. And the land itself keeps you moving. Tending a garden, splitting firewood, just walking your property, it all becomes part of your normal day. Physical activity stops being something you have to schedule. It just happens. Now let's talk about the mental side of this for a second, because I think it's important. When you remove a lot of that constant input, the ads, the social pressure, the sense that you're always supposed to be doing something, clarity tends to show up. A lot of rural residents describe this shift where things that used to feel really urgent just stop feeling that way. Keeping up with trends, having a packed social calendar, buying the newest version of everything. After a while out on the land, those things matter a whole lot less. What starts to matter more? Whether the well is working, whether the garden is coming in, whether the family had a good day, it's a different set of priorities. And for most people who've made the shift, it feels like a better one. Now I want to walk through some of the habits that tend to develop naturally when you're living rurally, not because you set out to build them, just because the lifestyle kind of nudges you in that direction. Meal planning becomes a bigger part of life. When a trip to the store takes some real planning, you start buying in bulk, cooking from scratch, and learning how to preserve food. Canning, freezing, dehydrating. Skills that sound old-fashioned until you're actually using them and realizing how useful they are. You also become way more in tune with the seasons. Spring is for planting. Fall is for harvesting. Winter's for preparing. That rhythm gives the year a kind of structure that a lot of people find really satisfying. It's not something you have to manufacture. The land just kind of teaches it to you. Resourcefulness is another big one. Something breaks, you figure out how to fix it. Basic plumbing, a little electrical troubleshooting, keeping equipment running. Rural folks pick these things up out of necessity. And honestly, those skills are empowering. Once you know how to handle your own property's systems, you feel a lot more in control. Spending habits change too. When every trip to town requires actual effort, you naturally start buying what you need rather than just grabbing whatever catches your eye. It's not some big philosophical decision. It just happens that way. Things become more purposeful, and outdoor time goes way up. Whether you're checking on animals, tending crops, or just sitting on the porch watching the sun go down, time outside increases a lot. And the research is pretty clear on this. Regular time in nature lowers stress and does real things for your mental health. That part's not just a feeling. All right, so let's shift gears and talk about the practical stuff. Because if you're thinking about buying rural land, there are some things worth keeping in mind as you make that decision. Start with honest expectations. Rural living is genuinely rewarding, but it does take some adjustment. Think about what your actual daily life would look like. How far are you from work, from schools, from a doctor if you need one? A manageable drive to town is a very different experience than one that starts to feel like a burden. If you can, try visiting any property you're serious about at different times of day, even different times of year. You'll get a much clearer picture of what you're actually buying into. Infrastructure matters more than a lot of buyers realize up front. Before you fall in love with the view or the acreage, it's worth understanding the basics. Is there a water source? A well, a spring, a municipal connection? What's the soil like if you're planning to grow anything? How does the land drain after heavy rain? What's road access like in the winter or after a storm? These things affect daily life way more than how many acres you're sitting on. Take the time to understand them. One of the most useful things you can do, either before you buy or right after, is just start building some foundational knowledge. Basic gardening, how a water system works, generator operation. You don't need to become an expert overnight, but having a working understanding of how things operate on your property makes the whole transition a lot smoother. A little knowledge goes a long way out there, and don't underestimate the value of connecting with the local community. Rural areas tend to be tight-knit. Show up at the local feed store, the farmer's market, a community event. Become a familiar face. Neighbors in rural settings share knowledge, lend equipment, and look out for each other in ways that are pretty rare in more urban environments. That network, it's genuinely valuable, both practically and personally. Last thing on tips, give yourself some time to adjust. The habits we talked about, the rhythms of rural life, they don't all click into place on day one. Some people take to it right away, others ease in over a season or two. Both are completely fine. There's no single right way to make the transition. Just allow yourself the space to figure out what works for your household. Now, I want to zoom out for a second and talk about why this is resonating with so many people right now. Because it's not just a small niche anymore. There's a real and growing movement of people choosing rural land because they want a different relationship with how they live. Not just because land is cheaper outside of cities or because they want more space, though those things matter too. It's deeper than that. Off-grid folks are drawn to the self-sufficiency. Homesteaders love the connection to food and land. Families want the space, the quiet, the pace, and a lot of buyers just want to own something that genuinely feels like theirs, not just on paper, but in real daily experience. Rural living doesn't promise a perfect life. Nothing does. But it does create the kind of environment where simpler habits come naturally, and where the things that actually matter tend to rise to the top. If you're thinking about making this move, whether that's next year or just something you've been turning over in your mind for a while, take your time, do your research, ask good questions, and trust that the adjustment, however gradual it ends up being, tends to be worth it for most people who go for it. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. If anything we talked about got you thinking, head over to landparker.com. You can browse available properties, learn more about how the buying process works, and check out our owner financing options, with some properties starting as low as $100 down and $100 a month. We make it pretty accessible. Go take a look. Thanks for hanging out with me today on the Land Buyer's Guide. I'll catch you next time.